Welcome to Mamamia Out Loud, what women are actually talking about on Wednesday, the 22nd of October. My name is Holly Wainwright.
I am Amelia Lester.
And I'm Claire Murphy.
And on our agenda for today, I watched The Golden Bachelor and now I need therapy, although maybe not for the reason you expect.
Gwyneth Paltrow and Chris Martin's daughter Apple is everywhere right now. Is this how a star is born? I want to unpack the strategy.
And have you ladies heard about the October slump? It sounds awful, but we have some tips on how to pick that butt up out of its rut and get your brain back in the game.
Thank God for that. But first, Amelia Lester.
But first, Albo went to the White House on Monday.
He finally got in.
He
Yay
did.
for Albo.
They had a lovely lunch, he and Donald Trump. I was concerned because on the lunch menu for dessert, they were having a pavlova, which sounded great, but it was served with pear and ice cream. And my personal view is that pavlova should not be served with ice cream because traditionally you have whipped cream on top, and that is too much dairy.
Also, why did it have to have fruit accompanying it? Because fruit should be part of the pavlova, should it not?
A lot of questions
It feels
there.
a little bit like the Americans didn't understand pavlova.
That wasn't the most awkward part of the event, though. Look, overall, it went pretty well. I think the consensus is that Albanese did a good job, but there was one moment which I still cannot even think about without experiencing full body squirm.
Full body squirm.
Sky News political editor Andrew Clennell was at a press conference afterwards, and he did a little bit of, shall we say, shit stirring, I believe is the technical term. He asked Trump about disparaging comments that Australia's ambassador to the US, Kevin Rudd, had once made about him. Let's take a listen.
Been concerned in Australia that it's taken 9 months to get this meeting. Have you had any concerns with this administration, with the stance on Palestine, climate change, or even things the ambassador said about you in the past, the Australian ambassador?
I don't know anything about him. I mean, if he said bad, then maybe he'll like to apologize. I really don't know. Did an ambassador say something bad about him? Don't tell me. I don't know. Where is he? Is he still working for you?
Yeah.
You said bad?
Before I took this position, Mr. President,
I don't like you either. I don't, and I probably never will. Go ahead.
Albo clearly had to make a decision in that split second as to what to do.
You know what my decision would have been? Sliding under the table. I would have literally crawled under the
Homer
table.
Simpson retreating into the hedge. And he just has this enormous smile on his face, which may be him on the verge of tears, and has to admit that the person who called Trump a village idiot and the most destructive president in history is in fact sitting on the other side of the table. Claire, you are a news hound. Is this the most awkward moment in diplomacy you've ever seen?
I mean, we've had worse. There's been hot mic moments which, have landed our leadership team in trouble in the past, which I think is potentially worse. But this was so beautiful. I could not love this moment more. For the starters, I don't know if it's a prerequisite if you are an Australian reporter working at the White House, you have to sound as quintessentially Australian as humanly possible because that question could not have sounded more broadly Aussie. Then just that beautiful setup of knowing that Kevin Rudd is sitting at that table and Albo knows that Kevin Rudd is sitting at that table, and then for Trump to drop it right in his lap and then he has to deal with it. And I think he dealt with it just beautifully. And the fact that he just literally pointed across the table at Kevin, like, oh yeah, it's that guy. It just felt like this moment of, it could have been the undoing of all of this, but I feel like it's almost made it the sealing of the deal. Like it made it feel like, oh my God, they've had a bit of a lull. And I did hear that afterwards Trump did give Kevin Rudd a full pardon for his past comments. But it could have potentially been so much worse, but it felt so very Australian. I think it just played into every American person's vision of what a larrikin Aussie kind of is in that moment. And I think it played out beautifully. I think it couldn't have gone better.
How is it a defense? So he called Trump a village idiot. Let's be honest, there are many of us who think, good on you, Kevin. You said what everybody thought. How's it a defense to be like, oh, yes, Mr. President, but before I had this job, as if you were like, I totally think you're a village idiot, but I'm not allowed to say it now. It's basically what he was saying.
Holly, you had a really interesting comment when we were chatting about it, which is that Albo and Trump represent two very different ideas of masculinity.
They definitely do.
And do you feel like those two ideas ended up being complementary rather than clashing in this moment?
Look, it actually looked that way. I know there are people who like to paint Albo as weak because he is not, he is not the alpha male guy, or at least outwardly he isn't. I mean, one assumes that he has to have a pretty steel spine to get to where he is, but he is not. He doesn't perform a kind of alpha male energy. And there are people who'd like you to believe he was weak. But I think that in this moment, he kind of showed the fact that he didn't hide under the table, which is what I would have done, or been like, no, I've never heard of him. I don't know what you're talking about.
He also didn't stop or stutter either. He didn't do like an like there was none of that moment either.
It suggests a bit of mutual respect, to be fair, which is, not that everybody wants to suck up to Trump, but he is kind of important in the scheme of things at the moment, as even Kevin Rudd has to acknowledge. Friends, last night I watched The Golden Bachelor. I'm hoping it will contribute to my eventual Walkley nomination. In case you missed it, here's what you need to know about the show that started on Monday night. It's a new version of The Bachelor, right? That show, the normal Bachelor, after domination for several years in the early teens, and then the Bachelorette spin-off and that success, it got cancelled in May last year. And the broad consensus is that people really aren't into that kind of more innocent dating show anymore. We like our maths, we like our fisticuffs, all that kind of thing. So 9 have rolled the dice on the idea that the people who are still watching this kind of TV are actually Generation X, and they've given us our own version of grown-up women wearing lovely frocks and behaving badly on TV.
So what ages are we talking?
So Bear, who's the Bachelor, and yes, he is called Bear, and he's originally from Canada, but he's lived in Australia a really long time, but he hasn't lost his accent, is 61. He is a widower. His wife died 13 years ago. And he is choosing from 20 women who are aged between 51 and 66. So quite a big age range, but all over 50.
I wonder how they came up with that age group.
I know, right? Well, maybe it was his settings on Tinder. Yeah. He seems nice and everything, Bear. Like, kind of boring, kind of nondescript. But who's not boring are the women. And they steal all the airtime, as they always do in these kind of shows. But seeing this big group of grown-up women kind of entering the house, wearing their frocks, doing all those things, the silly stunts they do. Somebody comes on a horse, somebody comes in a wedding dress, blah, 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 blah. It kind of feels novel to see women of that generation doing that. And I'm unpicking how I feel about it. But one of the more complicated feelings watching this show brought up for me is what I need to unpack today. There's a story on Mamamia called Opinion, because it was an opinion piece. The Golden Bachelor highlights a new class divide. Now, it's important to note that this particular story, as I'm talking now, has been read by thousands and thousands of women and is going very well on Mamamia. So plenty of people are clicking on this story. And in it, the writer Rachel Wells argues that what's most apparent when you get 20 over 50 women in one room is who has had work and who has not.
Right.
And she argues that distinction is all about who can afford it and who can't, and that is like becoming a new class divide.
Interesting, because before it would have just been probably the clothes or maybe the accent, but now it's written on their faces.
Yeah, right. And so I think that's true, but I also think it's deeper than that. Because I think that the cold, hard truth is that as a culture and possibly as a generation, I'm perfectly willing to be taken to task by my younger co-hosts today, that we are so obsessed with women's aging faces and the vast array of decisions that are out there now, obviously informed by things like access and money and, and desire. The vast array of choices is that it's impossible to watch this show and not be thinking, and this is what my inner monologue was doing, and I'm always very staunch about, you do you when it comes to aging. It's impossible not to be thinking, oh, she's aging well. Oh, she's done a bit too much. Oh, subtle talks, a little bit of wrinkles. We like that. Basically, it's impossible to not be reading their faces like a rich text on aging. And I kind of hate myself for that because that's just inside my own head. It's like a smorgasbord of beauty and body choices, and I barely even looked at Bear. Like he might as well have not been on the screen. I want to know, Amelia, right? Because I'm aware that that's a problematic position in my own mind. And it used to be on Mamamia, for example, that when we recap, and it still is, to be honest, when we recap reality shows and things, we've always stayed away from commenting on women's individual appearances. And one of the main reasons for that is because there's plenty of that all over the internet, and almost always that gets turned into the stick that's used to beat those women with. It'll just be like, well, she's not as pretty as she thinks she is, and she looks a bit old, and she needs to get to the gym, and just all this awful toxic dialogue about what women look like. So broadly, we've left all that alone because we don't want to add to the pile-on. But I feel like when it comes to aging, women's faces and aging, we're like in a bit of a new era of disclosure. We've talked about it on the show a little bit, of disclosure and interest and sharing information. Amelia, is that true? Are we in this new age of disclosure, or am I just trying to justify what's going on inside my head?
I think that's really interesting what you said, that Mamamia used to have this policy, but that you feel like it's changing a little bit. And I think the reason why that might be is because even from a feminist perspective, which is where this conversation and where Mamamia is coming from on this, you have to acknowledge that the connection between how you look and your age, that link is now being weakened. We can no longer safely assume what age someone is by how they look, because now we have all sorts of options available that we didn't have before. It reminded me of another big debate that's happening in media at the moment, which is about whether we should automatically put someone's age after their name.
Yeah.
And people are increasingly, because that's been practiced in newspapers and in written publications forever.
Yeah, for everybody. And is standard training as a reporter, right?
And you have to admit, or I will admit to you, that it's an instinct for me when I'm reading a story to sort of scan for how old someone is. I don't know why. I think it's because it helps situate them for me. But now there's this debate that says that's ageist. Why is it that we have to put someone's name and then immediately put their age after their name? Because we're trying to redefine what it means to be a certain age, so that if it says Amelia Lester 42 today could mean all sorts of different things that it didn't mean 20 years ago. Claire, what do you think about that?
So interesting, because I've spoken to a few psychologists over the years about this very thing, and the thing that they all say us humans are really good at is putting people in a framework that helps us understand them better. Whether that's putting them in a box, whether that's finding patterns, our brain really likes to contextualize things. And part of that will be someone's age, their ethnicity, it'll be what country they're from. Like, we've got all these ways of identifying ourselves so that we can create a vision of who we think this person is. And I had a discussion with my husband about this. It's not about age, but about sexuality and gender very recently. And there was a character on a TV show, and he was saying, oh, is that a man or is that a woman? And I said, look, I don't know. They seem to be, gender non-conforming. I'm not sure either way. And he said, oh, but like, do we know, like, biologically? And I said to him, why do you need to know? Like, why do you need to know whether that is a biological man or a woman? And he said, I don't know. My brain just is telling me I need to know. And I think it's the same with age, where we find these people are appearing on our screens now and they seem fairly ageless, or we saw them when they were young and now they still seem to be young, or we see younger women now. There's quite a big TikTok movement of like younger women saying, how old do you think I am? And the person will go, I don't know, like 35. And they're like, I'm 24, because they look so much older than what they would have done a few decades ago. So our brains really want to hitch onto something to make us better understand who that person is. And if that person's face has had work done, I think for us, we look at what age they are and then we go, oh, they've got a great plastic surgeon because they might be 63, but they look 42. Or, vice versa. If they've had bad work done, I think our brains go, okay, they've got a bad plastic surgeon. But I think this whole idea of trying to become an ageless society where we don't care about how old someone is, I just don't think human brains are wired in a way that allows us to completely let that go, and we'll always be looking for patterns or boxes to put people in to try and contextualize them.
We're thin slicing people, right? We're going, what I need to know about you is broadly like how old you are, what you do for a living, what blah, 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 so that we can work out where to put them. But I would argue that it's not necessarily about how old you look, because I don't think that everybody who does a lot of, who has a lot of procedures necessarily look younger, but what they look like is like they are, I think it's becoming code for I am well groomed. I think that when you move over 50, women sort of fall into camps that somehow tell you in thin slicing how important it is to them, to like what they look like. Because work can mean everything from can afford to see a facialist and get really good facials once a month to I had a deep plane facelift. You know what I mean? And that spectrum is enormous. And one of the things about this show is you're kind of seeing a spectrum there on the TV of all the different ways that women who are in a similar 10-year age bracket look. And the argument in Rachel Wells's piece was, well, that tells you whether or not they could afford it. But the problem with that argument is it suggests that every single woman who can afford to do things to her face to make her look younger will do it. And I'm not convinced that that's true.
No, and I also think that another dynamic is changing too. You said that it doesn't necessarily make them look younger, and that was the line on plastic surgery for a long time. It doesn't make women look younger, it makes them look different. I think because of advances in plastic surgery, that is changing. And my evidence for that, I've got two celebrities. I want to posit to you that Anne Hathaway looks younger. She looks younger than she used to. Mm-hmm. And the other example is Kris Jenner, who's a $100,000 facelift. Yeah. To my eye, she now looks like she is in her 40s.
She doesn't.
She does, Holly. Kris Jenner wants you to talk about it, and I think that's in part because in this new era of surgery, it's not just about radical transparency for the sake of it. It's about wanting people to recognize the effort you've put in and the skill that has been applied to your work. I think that's why people want us to talk about their surgery. Now, I want to be clear here. I'm not advertising or espousing for surgery, but I am saying that the work is getting better to my untrained eye. I am now finding it more confusing to figure out someone's age.
But don't you think that deep plane facelifts from Hollywood plastic surgeons who can make magic aside, what I see when I because this is what we like it or not, and I again, it's my conditioning, and I'm aware it's my Gen X conditioning, and I often try and program against it, right? What I see when I meet someone who's my age, I'm 53. When I meet someone who's my age, whether or not she's had a lot of things done to her face, and I'm not talking about deep plane facelifts because in my ordinary world, I don't, to my knowledge, know anyone who's done that. But a great deal of my friends will do injectables, fillers, resurfacing, teeth stuff, that is very common. And they're not people who are in the public eye. They're people who are teachers and, marketing executives, whatever. Like everybody, lots of people do that stuff. What it tells me about you is it tells me about your priorities. In Out Loud a while ago, a woman posted a question that said, if you could afford work, would you get it done? And there were a lot of answers. There were like 200 answers to this question. And I think it was about 70-30 to the yes.
Wow, that's much higher than I would have expected.
Maybe 60-40. I didn't feed it into the robots.
But a clear majority said yes.
Majority said yes. But also to be clear, work, again, was that spectrum I was talking about from injectables to facelifts. But a lot of people said, I'd rather spend the money on travel. If I had disposable income, I'd rather spend it on travel. Or some people said, if I had the disposable income, I'd get facials and expensive serums and rich lady treatments, but I wouldn't go under the knife. So it tells you a lot about, I kind of sometimes read people's faces rightly or wrongly about these are the decisions you've made. Like you've decided, that $300 that it might cost me for injectables is worth putting there. And it's becoming almost code for what we used to say. What did we used to say? We used to say well kept or well preserved.
Well maintained.
Well maintained. Maintenance. It's about maintenance. So when it's kind of become codified for all kinds of things, it's really interesting because I think back to whether or not you can discuss it, Kris Jenner is a really, of course you can discuss
Kris
it.
Jenner wants you to discuss it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. She's a really interesting example because she's in this era of new disclosure very much where she's like, here's the number for my surgeon. Good luck, trying to get in. The Kardashians in general, who are very influential in beauty standards, as we know, have become, after being, a long time of, say, a Kylie being, oh, no, I've done nothing. I don't know what you mean. I just got good at contouring. In 2025 is really open about saying, no, I did this, and I had this many meals in my lips, and I did this, and blah, blah, blah. So the age of disclosure is real, but the question of whether it's okay that I'm sitting there looking at all these interesting women of different ages and demographics and ethnicities on this show, and I'm thinking about how much effort they've put into aging. If that's okay or not, I think still depends on whether or not you're critiquing the actual woman. Like, I wouldn't feel comfortable sitting here or on social media or anywhere going, Betty looks like she's gone too far. Sally looks like she doesn't give a shit. It's still, I think, to the individual woman, it feels like handing someone a cudgel.
You can critique my deep plane facelift all you want. I think the surgeon did remarkable work.
So, Holly, the beauty of working at Mamamia is that we are surrounded by different generations of women. And so we're sitting here talking about the Golden Bachelor through a lens of us growing up in a time where we were taught to judge women very harshly on a range of things, aging being one of them. So we thought we'd ask the women at Mamamia how they're feeling about watching the Golden Bachelor and about seeing this group of older women put themselves forward like this. And this is what they had to say.
Firstly, he's pretty good looking, but I think it just gives us a little bit of hope. I don't know. I see my future and it's bright at this point. I just think it's wholesome. And yeah, I just want to see if men ever change.
Okay, so my mum is divorced now and she's the most beautiful person in the whole world. And so watching women of her age demographic find love is just so beautiful and wholesome, and it gives me hope for her.
I want to know if with older contestants there's more life experience and more maturity, if that comes across. Plus, do men literally ever change?
It feels a lot more genuine. For some reason, when the person is over 60, I just instantly believe that they are actually in it for love and not fame or Instagram followers. And I think that makes for a much more heartfelt, engaging show.
See, now
so
I
none
feel
of them
like
are
a
looking at it through
terrible
your
human.
lens.
Yeah. Now I feel like a terrible human because not even one of those women mentioned what those women look like.
But isn't it interesting that the words like wholesome come up a lot?
I asked Vernon, Amelia, and I said, what do you think about the Golden Bachelor? And she said, all those women look cute, which is the word I hate the most for describing grown-up wise people who've lived a life. They look cute and I want to have a cup of tea with them. And I'm like, I am entirely looking at this through my own insecurities.
Well, we all are. I mean, I think another thing that comes up through those Vox Pops is the idea that young people are looking for love, perhaps often more than older people, and they're looking at it through the lens of, will I find love? How do I find love? You're looking at it through the lens of, what should my face look like?
So true.
We're all bringing our own insecurities to the table.
Terrible. And I want to be clear that having watched the show, as well as those women all looking very different, as I've said many times, they're every bit as varied as the women on dating shows always are. There's a villain, you can see her already. There's somebody who's never gets picked and wants to get picked. All of the usual suspects are there, just in a grown-up form, which is great because that's one of the things I always want to shove home is that not every woman who has reached a grown-up age, as I like to call it, is completely sane and wise and lovely and never has too many champagnes and never says the wrong thing. We're every bit as messy, really, as the younger ones.
To be fair, I was just looking at them thinking, how can they still get around in heels at that age? I haven't worn a heel in 10 years now. I don't understand it. So good on you for having good Achilles. Well done. So, friends, despite the warmer weather approaching and the promise of some long summer days and end-of-year festivities ahead, we here in Australia are currently experiencing a phenomenon known as the October slump. Now, the TLDR on the October slump, also sometimes referred to as the October slide, is that we're in a position on the calendar with the end of year looking very much in sight, but the crush of work and tasks and home-related things that need to be completed by December and the ramping up of activities, maybe your work functions, kids things, partners functions, it can sometimes feel like you're clawing your way to the finish line, you know, like your all raggedy fingernails hanging onto the edge of your sanity. And if you do want to delve into this a little bit more, the Quickie's done an excellent episode about this. There's also an article that we can link in our show notes that our mate Annalise Todd wrote about it as well. And so that's where we find ourselves in October, although for me it is slightly different because it's my birthday month. So it is a month of celebration. However, I am maybe pretty sure that this might be where I'm at despite my birthday celebrations coming, because I have also, on top of all of this, added a house move into the mix that we all know is one of the most stressful things you can do in your life. And so I just want to know from you two quickly, because I do have some solutions or potential solutions to this October slump experience, but I want to know how the both of you are feeling at this point in the year. Amelia, are you experiencing any October slump that you're aware of?
I've been feeling a lot of ambient anxiety, not least because socially I feel like we've already gotten to the point where it's like, are we going to see each other before Christmas or not?
That gets earlier all the time, don't you think?
And it's kind of like a friendship test. I just want to say though, why is moving house truly stressful? Because I remember when I was just starting out in the world as a young adult and I needed to pack up my belongings and move, and people told me that old adage that moving house is one of the 3 most stressful things that can happen to you. The other 2 are death and divorce, I think. I get death and divorce, but like every time I move house, I am surprised by how gobsmackingly awful it is, and it's like I never learn the lesson.
Yeah, there is something truly heinous about leaving a property and having to take every single item that you own, put it into a box only to take it out of the same box at the other end and put it in a new location. It's so dumb. Like I wish I could just like light a match and walk away and start over because it's so much hassle. But yeah, it is truly the worst.
I once moved house 3 times in 1 year. And every time, this is where having a bit of a goldfish memory helps, right? Is that every time I'd be like, no big deal. No big deal.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Yeah.
Every time it was a big deal.
I think our brains tell us that to protect us, because if we remembered how bad it was, we wouldn't have a property market. Everyone would just be living in the same place that they grew up in forever.
No one would ever move. Anyway,
but I derailed us. Yes, I am feeling it. And I thought it was mostly because of this social anxiety about like making sure that I somehow see everyone like I'm the Pope or something before Christmas.
I don't
know. But Holly, do you feel that?
I do, but I'm fighting it. So one of my least favourite things in the world, and this irritates some of my friends, I hate feeling like time is rushing past me, so I will often refuse to make plans too far in advance because
you're so enigmatic.
I'm not. It's just that my Nicole-y friends, so my friend Penny, for example, who's the chief Nicole in my life, she is already saying to me, next year, are we going away in April? Can I book this date in? What about we doing in the winter school holidays?
And she's planning ahead.
And I'm like, do not live my life. Like
you are leaving her on red? Is that what you're doing? Like just like not responding?
I'm not leaving her on red, but I literally say to her, I'm like, I don't want to wish my life away. Like if I'm thinking
oh my God, Holly,
so
stop disrespecting the fact that you have a Nicole. Not everyone has one. They are like gold, my friend.
I love my Nicole and she is amazing, but it makes me deeply stressy to be planning Christmas in September.
Claire, you're a Nicole, right? I'm getting that vibe.
I am not a Nicole. I am not even close, but I have some of the best Nicoles in my. I am going away next week to the Gold Coast with my very favouriteest Nicole, who's organised every damn thing for me, given me the dates, and even organised my birthday dinner for me on Friday night.
Like, but my
amazing.
point about this is that you don't have to buy into the panic that it's nearly the end of the year, because it actually isn't nearly the end of the year. There are still I can't count. There are still 2 months and 2 weeks or something to go till the end of the year. That's ages. Like if you thought about 2 months in another category,
but in the context of 12 months, it's nothing.
I know you're fancy and I'm not. But like if you were going, no, I mean as in she's fancy, she can do maths. That's all I mean, Amelia. Is that all I mean is that if you thought about 2 months in another way, like if you were going on holiday for 2 months, that would seem like a really long time.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can play mind games on yourself where instead of going, oh my God, it's only 2 months till Christmas, you could be like, imagine if I was going to Europe for 2 months. I'd be like, that is the longest holiday of all time.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is don't let yourself slide.
That is true. But what if you have a conversation with a friend who says, like I caught up with a friend not long ago and I said, I was just on the phone and I said, should we catch up? And she goes, I don't have a free weekend now until December something or other.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. And the same has happened to a lot of my other friends. Like they are fully solidly booked every weekend until the end of the year. Like it's done. The calendar is full. The appointments are set. Like there is not a lot of wiggle room towards this part of the year.
But my point is that I don't, and this is something I'm working on, right? I don't believe you have to always buy into everybody else's panic. So if it's really stressing you out to think it's 10 weeks till Christmas and oh my God, the year's almost over. And I said that this year I was going to X, Y, Z and I haven't done it. So I'm a failure. And oh my God, it's like, actually, no, there's still however many weeks left as we've established. I don't know. But and I feel like sometimes we just need to breathe in and go, all right, it's not like I have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, which brings us to this piece, a Substack that we were talking about today. That's like what to do if you feel like life is passing you by. Because I feel like that is kind of what this end of year panic is about. It's like, oh my God, it's all just happening again. And I reckon you can grab onto the reins. Was there anything in that?
There is. So this Substack was written by Alex Mathers. He's a productivity expert. And you're right, the title is 10 Things to Do Today If You Feel Life is Passing You By.
Can you imagine having a productivity expert in your life? Side note, how annoying would that be?
That Nicole is next level.
Yes. Oh my God. They should have Nicole in their job title.
All right. I'm not going to go through the whole 10, but here are some highlights. If you want to pull your brain out of October slump mode and stop getting caught up in the panic, as Holly says. So first of all, we're going to start small. Make a commitment to creating one new habit in a key life area. Pick one. It can be anything, health, money, relationships, adventure, whatever you like. Focus in on one thing you can change. I'll give you an example. This time last year, when I was experiencing the October slump, I decided to do 50 squats every day while I brush my teeth in the morning.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Well done.
Now, I made that decision because I was very aware by then that I'm in perimenopause and I'm worried my bones are about to turn to dust and my muscles are going to waste away until I'll be one of those elderly ladies who gets stuck on the toilet and has to call someone to come and get them up.
I thought you were going to say I'm well aware that I'm chasing a fat ass. I want the big round butt. Because that's where the Kardashians talk about squats a lot, Merv. Sorry.
I mean, I am also trying to achieve my Kardashian curves, but unfortunately, I don't feel like at this stage that is possible without a BBL. But 12 months on from that point, I am still doing my 50 squats and they get easier and easier. And now it's become a habit that I've come to almost weirdly enjoy. I do not enjoy exercise, not in any way, shape or form. I have to sneak it in where I can. But this has become a habit now. So as soon as I put the toothpaste on the toothbrush, my brain goes, all right, squat time. And I'm doing it.
I love that.
So, pick yourself up.
I like
Number
that.
2, you can connect with someone you've been avoiding. Now, this, like a friend, family member, colleague, you're not avoiding them because you don't like them. It's just because you haven't. Right? So you haven't made the time and then all of a sudden time has passed and now you're wondering if you should or shouldn't reach out because you don't know how they'll feel.
This was my favorite of the tips. It really spoke to me and it reminded me of some excellent advice I got recently. I have a friend who, let's say my friend is in politics and my friend is not Kevin Rudd.
It's Albo, right? It's Albo. Yeah, okay.
Friend is in American politics and he gave me some advice. He's really good because he's in politics at making sure everyone in his life feels like they are seen by him and like he's caring about them. And he told me that his advice is when you are reaching out to someone that you haven't spoken to in a while, it can be really scary for you and it can also be quite intimidating for the person you're reaching out to because they start getting worried. If you send them a text and say, can we talk tomorrow? They're like, oh my God, what's happened? Is there something wrong? So he said to kind of just break the ice between the two of you, you should just text someone and say, hey, can I get your advice on something tomorrow? Can I call you at 10?
Great
That's
advice.
gorgeous.
And he says it doesn't matter. You don't actually need advice on anything. And so I tried this out. I texted someone who I'd been meaning to text for a long time and I said, can I get your advice on something? They write back immediately because they feel flattered. They're not worried. They're like, yeah, of course.
They feel important
they
too,
feel
right?
important and valued.
Yeah.
And I called my friend who I hadn't spoken to in a while. I just made up something that I needed advice on. Guess what? She gave me great advice. So I also got some advice that I didn't even know I needed. And I've just found it really helpful.
Okay, so if you're listening to this right now, go and get your phone, text that person immediately. Don't think about it. Now you've done that, it's a weight off and you aren't thinking about that person, whether they're mad at you or not, and you have a clear conscience.
This is all very good advice, but you're just giving me a lot more things to do, and there's a different energy that needs to be embraced here, friends. It's the energy of not. It is okay to do things differently this year. Start now. You can't do it in December. Is that when people start asking you everything, just channel me. Just channel me.
The final quarter nup. I love it.
Nup. This year, I'm not going to XYZ. You could organise that, turn to your partner if you have one. Why don't you organise the presents for the teachers? Give them lots of warning. Why not?
Oh, that's a tough one to hand over, but okay.
Why don't we, or whatever it is that always stresses you out at this time of year in particular, because we go into this massive rush, it gets too late. Final quarter nup energy, friends. Don't let yourself be overwhelmed. Hold on to the reins. Be strong. No, not going to do that. Maybe you could do that.
It's not too late. So go and just shake off the slump. Have a bit of a less panicked October.
So some people enjoy bird watching. Some people like train spotting. Holly Wainwright and I like tracking Gwyneth Paltrow and Chris Martin's child Apple.
I'm shocked that Holly Wainwright is doing something connected with Gwyneth Paltrow. This must be something new for her.
Dear.
But the thing is that their daughter Apple is suddenly everywhere. It's uncanny. So let me explain the various places she's been popping up recently. First of all, a band named Jade Street, which is an LA indie rock duo, is releasing its third single next week. Now, that wouldn't otherwise be something we talked about on this show. But Apple Martin is singing on the song. And the consensus in the office is that we kind of like the song. It's called Satellites. So the 21-year-old Apple made her debut as a model as well. She does a lot of different things at Chanel's Paris Fashion Week show in 2023, Me Too. And she has just posed for Gap's fall denim campaign with her mother. And she is also the face of the British brand Self-Portrait.
Have you seen those cute little Q&As she's been doing in there? She is very busy all of a sudden.
Very busy. And what fascinates me about this is the strategy of building a star that we are seeing here in real time. Holly, why is Apple Martin suddenly everywhere? I assume this is some kind of concerted plan, right?
Can I interrupt just for 1 second? When you say Apple Martin is everywhere, I feel like your algorithms are slightly different to mine, because today was the first time I'd realised Apple Martin was doing anything.
She existed.
I knew that she was a child of theirs, but I did not know what she was doing until now.
You know how you said you do 50 squats while brushing your teeth? Yes. Holly and I exchanged texts about Apple Martin while brushing our teeth.
Okay,
who's to say which one is better?
It's true. There is no question that the culture, and not only our obsession, is suddenly trying to thrust her upon us. Now, I think it's all about the magic number 21. That's what I think, right? Because if you have read, as Amelia and I have, the Gwyneth Paltrow biography by Amy Odell, which last week Gwyneth referred to as a hack job, which is a whole other conversation that we will have off mic. You would know that Gwyneth, from a very young age at school, wanted to be famous. She wanted to be in movies. She wanted to act. Her mum was an actress. Her dad was a director. So she was what we would term a Nepo baby too. And so she was appearing. She was turning up at her mum's theatre, summer theatre stock place, and appearing in the plays. And she was trying to get parts in movies when she was at uni in California, when she was supposed to be studying. And her parents tried to hold her back to a point until she was an adult to enter the game. But she jumped in a bit early, didn't she? I have a theory that Gwynnie and Chris is a sensible Englishman, could clearly see Apple's star potential from a very young age. Let's face it, she looks like a famous person. She sounds like a famous person. Yeah. She sounds so much like Chris. She suddenly looks ubiquitously familiar. And even those of us who keep tabs on her, Claire, unlike you, I haven't really been seeing her around that much until now. She suddenly looks like I've been seeing her for ages. I think they told her, you have to wait till you're 21.
That makes sense, because she turned 21 in May, and that's the age in the US where you can drink. So it's very much like the mark of adulthood. Mm-hmm. And she has been studying. She's at university studying pre-law at Vanderbilt, which is a quite prestigious university in the American South. She has said, my parents did a really good job of telling me that I'm not entitled to things, that I need to work. I think that's a very feasible theory. But what I want to complicate things, though, because we can agree that her singing is really hauntingly familiar to Chris's and is quite catchy and good, and she certainly looks great in the bias cut dresses that she's been modelling for Self-Portrait. But she is modelling a very different type of Nepo baby to others. She is trying to show that she works very hard, that she is getting there through discipline and through a concerted strategy. There's another Nepo baby coming up through the ranks. Her name is Romy Mars. She is the daughter of Sofia Coppola and the Phoenix singer Thomas Mars. She is 18, so interesting age difference there. Still very much a child in terms of the American markers of adulthood. And she is completely unabashed about how her life is better than yours. She's released this very super catchy single. It's called A-Lister. It's about flying in private jets, swimming in gorgeous pools. It's a great song, and she's just got a completely different vibe to Apple. She originally became famous for a TikTok in which she talked about being grounded because she attempted to charter a helicopter to go and visit her friend.
Yeah, I remember
which
that.
is relatable. And now
Cool.
she's very famous for a TikTok dance that she filmed with Jacob Elordi where they seem to be on the top of some kind of Parisian skyscraper. They're dancing.
Be
It
right
has
back.
more than 30 million views.
Be right back Googling that.
She makes me feel bad. The thing about Apple is I think Apple's trying to position herself as a different kind of Nepo baby to that Romy Mars model of, yeah, my life is great and I'm going to tell you about it.
Yeah, but there's nothing new about daughters of actresses being actresses. Like, so I think you're right. Like, Romy is playing into a bit more of that, like, billionaire TikTok vibe, isn't she?
Yes.
We talked about Becca Bloom and that kind of look at all my amazing stuff. And it's clear that Apple wants to be. Well, what's interesting about that is, as I said to Amelia when we were coming in, the Gen X in me is like, so does she want to be an actress or does she want to be a singer or does she want to be a model? Because you used to have to pick one, right? But that's not the way it works anymore. Clearly, Apple wants to be all those things. The thing I find fascinating is that Apple Martin would have grown up seeing her mom being slammed, mocked, derided for being all the things that now Apple seems to be like portraying, being a skinny, blonde, privileged.
Being an it girl, essentially.
Yeah, being an it girl, a beautiful woman who comes from privilege and then strategically used those advantages to build a career. That's what a lot of people slag Gwyneth Paltrow off for all the time. And you might imagine that if you grow up seeing that, you might think, I don't want any part in that. Like, I don't need to do it for the money. I don't need to have people writing about me, talking about me, slagging me off. I could just live a nice, quiet life. But so few do. It's really interesting to me.
That is interesting.
People are going to mock Apple Martin mercilessly. We saw that because that beautiful song, she performed it live at a gig in Nashville, and the video of that has gone all over social media. And her vocals don't sound as great as they do on that song. You know, I mean, it depends on your viewpoint, but she's already being roundly mocked for being talentless and for being privileged, and she will cop it. And I'm interested in the sort of decision to do that when you're aware, whereas a lot of famous people who become famous from nowhere, so that, you know, their dad was a carpenter and their mom was a teacher, but they wanted to be an actor or a pop star, they'll say nothing can prepare you for fame. Nothing can prepare you for that spotlight. It is a shock when it happens to you.
Now I know that because I'm on Mamamia Out Loud.
Exactly. Oh my goodness, we can barely walk outside. But like these kids do know. They know exactly what's going to happen, and yet they want to do it. So that's interesting in itself.
Can I just say, what a time to be alive that I have experienced second-generation Nepo babies. Like, this is fun.
That's such a good point.
I do love a Nepo baby. I mean, let's face it, though, these kids aren't the first to step into the family business. Like, you know, if your family runs any kind of trade or store even, like, people step into their parents' shoes all the time. Like, you know, if your dad's a plumber, you end up being a plumber, like no one kind of blinks an eye. But when a kid of an entertainer also becomes an entertainer, it's almost like we're going, like, how dare they step into that space? Like, it's they're already ready for it.
I'm not shocked. I'm just amazed that they want that level of attention. When
Yeah,
they've
but I
seen
guess
the
if
bad
that's
side.
what you know, and they're used to it, right? They've been Nepo babies from the moment they were in the world, and the fact that they called her Apple was spread on headlines from one end of the world to the other. Like, they are so used to this attention already. Like, I would be surprised if they have not had many conversations, Gwyneth, Chris and Apple and the other one. There's a fourth one of them, right? There's another
Moses.
child. Moses.
He's still at uni. He has to wait till he turns 21.
Like, I'm sure that they've had many conversations about the choices that they're going to make if they do step into the same limelight as their parents do, and I'm sure that they are well armed to handle it and arguably are better armed to handle it than someone who does come out of obscurity into the spotlight all of a sudden because they've grown up with it and understand it. So, like, I get it. Like, sure, they don't want to cop the shit. No one does, but they're used to it in a way, and I think they're forearmed and forewarned.
Well, they definitely have a role model for it. So Gwyneth Paltrow is well known for being massively criticised, of course, and she has this I don't care energy about it, and some people like that and some people don't. The crucial distinction that needs to be made between your parent being a plumber and your parent being a movie star, though, is that you don't hear a great deal, plumbing, it's so hard to break into. Like, you can go and do an apprenticeship and become a plumber. Like, whereas this world is so rarefied, it's so hard, people like to get into, it's hard. Anyway, the last point I want to make is there are only a few children of famous people who do not step into their shoes. Bruce Springsteen has a son who's a firefighter.
Doesn't he also have a son who's married to Millie Bobby Brown?
That's
so
John
that's
Bon
not the same
Jovi.
son, right?
No,
so that's John Bon Jovi, different rocker.
Yes, that's true, actually.
Different New Jersey rocker.
So Bruce Springsteen has a son who's a firefighter. One of Anna Wintour's kids is a psychiatrist. Gordon Ramsay's daughter is a police officer.
Okay, problem with the Anna Wintour one is that Anna Wintour's ex-husband, who is the father of the psychiatrist, is a psychiatrist. So he's actually a Nepo baby.
Essentially a Nepo baby.
Howard Stern's another good example. He has two daughters. One is a rabbi and one is a social worker.
Yeah. So some of them do go, no, I don't want to do that. Out Louders, a massive thank you to all of you for being here with us today. Goodbye.
Bye.